I never thought I'd say this out loud. Not to a friend, not to a therapist, and definitely not to strangers on the internet. But something happened that night, something I can't forget, no matter how hard I try. It started so innocently, just a cold evening at the cabin with my son. We were alone, just the two of us like always. But something changed. And now, I can't look at him the same way. I know how this sounds. But if you've ever felt invisible for so long that one moment of warmth blinds you, maybe you'll understand. I'm not proud of what I'm about to share. In fact, I've spent weeks replaying that night in my head, hoping that if I turned it over enough times, I'd find some angle that made it all less wrong. But no matter how I twist it, it still feels like I crossed something I wasn't meant to. I'm 44, a single mom. My name's Nina. I've raised my son Ethan on my own since he was 2. His father left before Ethan could even speak his name. It's always just been the two of us, birthdays, holidays, scraped knees, college applications. He's not just my son. In so many ways, he became my whole world. Maybe that's the problem. I used to think I was doing a good job, keeping boundaries clear, being the parent, but lately, everything's felt off. I've felt like I'm fading, like no one really sees me anymore. I go to work, I come home, I make dinner, I sleep alone, I smile when people ask how I'm doing. But inside, I'm just tired of being the strong one, tired of pretending I don't need anything. When Ethan said he wanted to spend his winter break with me at the cabin, I was happy, genuinely happy. It felt like a break from the noise of life, a quiet weekend where I could finally exhale. I didn't know it would turn into the moment everything shifted. That one night would flip everything I thought I knew about love, closeness, and boundaries. I know how this sounds. I hate how it sounds. But I also know that if I don't say it now, I might never find the courage to face what happened. My life hasn't exactly been full. I've been on autopilot for years now. Wake up, work, cook, clean, sleep, repeat. I work from home most days, accounting for a small firm that barely notices if I'm alive unless payroll's late. I don't mind the solitude. Or at least, that's what I keep telling myself. Solitude is easier than disappointment. Friends faded after my divorce. They meant well at first, checking in, inviting me out, but when you say no enough times, people stop asking, and honestly, it was easier that way. No one to explain why I still sleep on one side of the bed. No one to ask when I'll start dating again. Ethan was the only constant. Even after he went off to college, he'd call, check in, send silly memes just to make me laugh. I didn't expect him to want to spend his winter break with me. But when he suggested a weekend getaway at the old family cabin, I said yes before he could change his mind. I cleaned the place up days before he arrived, changed the sheets, stocked his favorite snacks, even lit a candle in his room like I used to when he was a boy. I wanted him to feel at home. I wanted to feel needed again. I didn't expect that weekend to stir something in both of us, something I hadn't felt in years. Warmth, closeness, the kind that blurs lines you thought were unshakable. Ethan pulled into the driveway just after sunset. His car was dusty, his backpack slung over one shoulder, and his smile, God, that smile, made something in my chest ache. It wasn't romantic, not then. It was the ache of nostalgia, of watching your baby boy grow into a man and not knowing exactly when it happened. He hugged me tight, the kind of hug that lingers, like he didn't want to let go. You still smell like vanilla and coffee, he whispered. I laughed and brushed it off. But inside I was struck by how easily he remembered, how easily he still saw me. The cabin was small, rustic, and always felt a little too quiet without the sound of cartoons or Ethan running through the hallway with his stuffed tiger. Now it felt even quieter with just the two of us and the snow piling up outside the window. We cooked dinner together, spaghetti, his favorite, and talked about his classes, his roommates, his plans after graduation. He was so grown, but there was still something soft in his voice when he asked, "Do you still sleep with the window cracked like you used to?" I nodded. Still like the cold, I said. Still hog the covers? He teased. We both laughed. It felt warm and easy. That night, the heater acted up. The cabin always had its quirks. The bedrooms were freezing, and I could see Ethan shiver even through his hoodie. I offered him my bed. It's closer to the fireplace, I said. He agreed, but then hesitated. Do you mind if we just share it? He asked. Like we used to, when I had nightmares. There was a pause. I should have said no. I should have made a joke or sent him back to the guest room. But instead, I smiled. Of course not, I whispered. It's just for the night. I turned off the light, pulled the heavy quilt over us, and lay there beside him. That's when everything began to change. At first, it felt innocent. Just two people sharing warmth under a thick quilt in a cold cabin. I lay on my side, facing the window, trying to still my thoughts. Ethan was behind me, quiet, steady, his breathing calm. I told myself it was nothing. Just comfort, just a son and his mother. Closer than usual, yes, but not in a way that meant anything more. But then I felt him shift. His arm brushed mine, then, after a pause, it settled gently over my side. Light at first, like he was testing the boundary. I froze, my heart skipped, but I didn't move. I didn't stop him. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe he remembered the nights I held him when he was little. Scared after thunderstorms or nightmares. Maybe that was all this was. But I didn't feel like his mother in that moment. I felt like someone else. A woman, a body, a presence he wanted near. His hand didn't wander. It just rested there, warm, steady, but it was enough. Enough to send my mind spinning. My back tensed, my breath caught, and still, I didn't say a word. The silence between us grew thick, heavy, electric. He didn't say anything either, but I could feel him awake behind me. Still, present, waiting. I should have turned over. I should have said something, anything, to break the tension. But I stayed still, too still. And in that stillness, I started to feel something I hadn't let myself feel in years. Not lust, not yet. But attention. And that's what made it dangerous. I wish I could say it stopped there. That I rolled over, whispered something motherly, and reset the boundary that had quietly started to slip. But I didn't. I lay there, eyes open in the dark, feeling Ethan's breath against the back of my neck, warm, steady, a rhythm I hadn't noticed in years. And then his hand moved. Just slightly, from resting on my waist to gently squeezing, as if to say, I'm still here. It wasn't forceful. It wasn't even bold. It was slow, tentative, careful, but it lit something inside me I wasn't prepared for. I felt my body respond before my mind could catch up. A sharp intake of breath. A tingle low in my spine. My fingers curled under the blanket. Fists clenched with confusion. Was this comfort? Was it memory? Or was it something far more dangerous growing between us? He whispered my name, soft, barely audible. Nina? He hadn't called me that in years. Not since he was a teenager trying to act cool in front of his friends. But in that moment, it didn't feel disrespectful. It felt intimate. I turned toward him, just slightly, and our eyes met in the dark. He looked unsure, hesitant, but there was something else there too, need. Not physical, not yet. But emotional, raw, real. I could have stopped everything right then. I could have reminded him I was his mother, that this was a line we weren't meant to cross. Instead, I whispered, it's okay. And even now, I'm still trying to understand why. The room was still, but inside me, everything trembled. I felt Ethan shift behind me, closer this time. His arm wrapped more firmly around my waist. His body pressed against my back. I told myself it was just the cold. That he needed warmth. That I needed something to hold on to. But then his lips brushed the back of my neck. Soft, barely there. I froze. The kind of stillness that isn't calm, but terrified. He didn't say anything, neither did I. My breath caught in my throat. And I waited for him to pull back. For me to pull away. But we just stayed there. Suspended. His hand moved next, slowly sliding up my arm. Then resting at my shoulder. I turned slightly, and our eyes met in the dark. And then, he leaned in. This time to my lips. And I let him. It wasn't deep, it wasn't hungry, but it happened. Our mouths touched in the quietest, gentlest way possible, like he was asking me something without words. And the worst part? I answered. I felt it all, years of loneliness, of being unseen, of never being touched unless it was a handshake or a bump in a grocery aisle. I wasn't thinking, I wasn't mothering. I was responding. And just as quickly, I pulled away. Ethan, I whispered, choking on his name. His eyes widened. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. But he did, and so did I. We turned our backs to each other. But that 1 second, our lips meeting, had already rewritten something in me I couldn't undo. The next morning, we didn't speak. We moved around the cabin like strangers, offering quiet nods, avoiding eye contact, pretending the night before hadn't happened. Ethan poured coffee and left mine on the table without a word. I thanked him too softly. He didn't respond. The silence between us wasn't angry. It was worse than that. It was fragile, like if either of us said the wrong thing, whatever thread holding us together would snap. I stayed busy, wiped down counters that didn't need cleaning, folded laundry we hadn't worn. I didn't dare ask him how he slept. I already knew. Around noon, there was a knock at the door. I jumped. Ethan looked up sharply, alert like a deer before it bolts. I hesitated before answering. It was Mark, our neighbor from 2 cabins down. Warm smile, messy hair, holding a toolbox. Hey Nina, he said, heard the wind howling all night. Thought I'd check if your heat's holding up. I forced a smile. Thanks, Mark. It's been acting up. He stepped inside, and the warmth of his presence was grounding. He'd always been kind, offering to help with firewood, dropping off groceries during storms. But today, I felt Ethan watching him too closely. While Mark fiddled with the old thermostat, I felt a shift. Ethan was standing by the hallway, arms crossed, jaw tight. From the corner of my eye, I saw something flicker in his expression, something sharp. Jealousy? Possessiveness? When Mark reached out to hand me a blanket he'd brought, his hand brushed mine. It was innocent, but Ethan flinched. The moment felt too full, like the air was about to crack open. Mark looked between us, sensing something. But he said nothing. As he left, Ethan muttered, "He didn't have to touch you like that." I turned to him, stunned. But before I could answer, he was already walking away. We didn't talk about Mark. Or the night before. Instead, Ethan stayed quiet, too quiet. He scrolled through his phone, stared out the window, answered my questions with one-word replies. But beneath that calm surface, I could feel it, the tension, the weight of everything we weren't saying. I tried to act normal, made soup, turned on an old movie we both used to love, sat on the couch like nothing inside me had shifted. But the space between us had grown wider, even when we sat inches apart. At one point, he reached for the remote, and our hands touched. Just for a second. But it jolted something in both of us. I pulled away. He noticed. "Nina," he said my name again, softly this time. I turned to him, but the words wouldn't come. What could I say? That I didn't mean to let things go that far? That I didn't know what I was doing? That I missed feeling seen so badly I didn't stop him? He leaned forward like he wanted to close the distance again, but this time I stood up. "I'm going to check on the firewood," I said, too fast, already heading toward the door. I stayed outside longer than I needed to, let the cold slap my skin until my cheeks stung. I wanted it to numb me. I wanted the silence in my head to come back. The one that protected me before everything got complicated. When I came back in, Ethan had gone to his room. The door was closed. And I didn't knock. I should have pulled away. I should have said no. I should have reminded him who I am, who he is. But I didn't, and now I can't stop replaying it. That moment, that breath between us, that touch that didn't belong. The warmth of his lips, the trembling in mine. I can still feel it. I keep asking myself, what kind of mother lets this happen? What kind of woman lets her son kiss her and doesn't back away? But the truth I don't want to say out loud, the one I hate myself for, is that for a second. I needed it, I wanted it. Not the act. But the feeling. To be seen. To be wanted. To feel like I existed in someone's eyes again, not as a background figure or a burden, but as a human being. I've spent so long being just mom. Just Nina who works from home. Nina who cooks. Nina who smiles and pretends. But in that moment, I wasn't pretending. And that's what scares me most. I didn't protect him. I didn't protect myself. I opened a door that should have stayed locked. And now I sit here with that truth wrapped around me like a second skin, tight, suffocating, and impossible to peel away. How'd I look him in the eyes after this? How'd I look in the mirror? He came to my door late that night. No words at first, just that same look in his eyes, somewhere between sadness and longing. He sat beside me again. But this time we didn't touch. The air was too thick with everything we weren't saying. I wish I hadn't felt what I felt, he finally whispered. My heart cracked, because I felt the same. I know, I said, voice soft, broken, me too. He nodded, eyes glassy, I think we need space. And he was right. So I let him go. When the door closed behind him, I sat still for a long time. Then I walked to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. My face, my eyes, my mouth, the one he had kissed. I stared at that reflection like it belonged to someone else. I'm not a monster. But I'm not blameless either. I was tired. I was lonely. I was vulnerable. And that moment, however wrong, it made me feel alive. I don't know what happens next. We haven't spoken since he left the cabin. And maybe that's for the best. Maybe space is the only way forward now. But there's one question I can't let go of. And maybe you've asked yourself the same. If the only person who made you feel alive again was your own son, what would you have done?